Welcome back. With me for tonight's Big Picture Rumble are Nick Adams, Christy Setzer, and Gianna Caldwell. Cuba is the first country to successfully eliminate mother-to-child transmission of both HIV and syphilis. The head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Margaret Chan, called it one of the greatest public health achievements possible and, quote, an important step towards having an AIDS-free generation. Globally, there's a 15 to 45% chance that a pregnant woman living with HIV will pass that virus on to her child either during pregnancy or nursing. In Cuba, that rate has dropped to less than 2%. The only way to do that is to have comprehensive health care that provides early prenatal care, HIV and syphilis testing for pregnant women and their partners, treatment for those who test positive, and C-section deliveries. So, are we ready to catch up with Cuba and put universal health care in place? Cuba, I would add, by the way, has the world's highest life expectancy at 77 years. And a recent Commonwealth Fund study found that the U.S. is a lot worse than many socialist European countries when it comes to wait times. We rank at the bottom of countries polled in terms of the percentage of people who said that they could get a same-day or next-day doctor's appointment.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with the results. You can't argue with the success, and you also can't argue with the philosophy, which is much more about preventative care than we in the United States are. It seems that, you know, from corporations to just sort of generally the philosophy that we have is one of let's save a few dollars on the, you know, in the short end.
Actually, it's more like let's skim a few dollars off the top so Stephen J. Hemsley can be more than a billionaire.
Right,
you know,
right,
the CEO of United Healthcare.
And not ever play the long game, which says that maybe if we have healthy people, that they, you know, won't take as many sick days, and they, you know, that there are actual huge societal benefits to investing in healthcare in a way that we just still haven't done.
Right. Actually, you can get preventative care. People just don't go to those appointments. Just like a lot of folks have Obamacare and they still go to the emergency room if they need care. That's the culture of this country. No doubt that they've done something good, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we should copy what they've done. We're trying to fix the problems with our current
What you're
system.
referring to is the Oregon study that has been updated and debunked, which was basically that 1 year after people got Medicaid, they were still showing up in the ERs. And first of all, they weren't all showing up in the ERs. And secondly, it takes a couple of years for people who've never, ever in their lives had a doctor to figure out what do you go to see the doctor for, how do you go see the doctor, where is the doctor, how do you make an appointment. You know, I find it impossible to find a doctor in this town,
well,
and to make an appointment in less than 6 months out. It's insane here in the United States.
So if we look at the statistics that really reflect the African American community, you would see that a lot of African Americans are in poor health because they don't go to the doctors. They go to the emergency rooms if something is wrong.
Right.
So that statistic in which you name obviously
it's not just African Americans. That's poor people right across the board.
That's everyone. But again, this particular healthcare system that they have in place doesn't necessarily mean that ours would do better.
But if we had
10,000
local clinics on street corners, and you know, much like Cuba has, if we had regular local clinics, you could just walk a couple blocks, walk in the door, as I did in Australia when I was in Australia. I got Giardia poisoning from the Sydney water supply or from the Lockhart River. I'm not sure which.
What were you drinking, Thom?
Yeah, there you go. I was chasing alligators. I actually woke up one morning, camping next to the. He was that far away from me, and a friend of mine who was hitting him with a stick. That's what woke me up.
Wow.
You know. Anyway, I was so sick. And I walked in off the street, and the doctor was like, "Sure, we'll see you, no problem at all." You know. And if you were Australian, it would cost you absolutely nothing. I was an American citizen; it cost me $25.
Well, I don't know if it costs absolutely nothing. Someone pays for it.
Of course.
But look, I haven't had an equivalent experience in America, so I can't really compare the two. Thankfully, Thom. But I can tell you that government health care has also got its drawbacks, without a doubt. There's long waiting lists.
For non-emergency procedures.
One of the great things, I think, about the Australian system is that we've got both. We've got the public and the private.
Yeah.
And
we should have that here.
I think that's a good blend.
We should have, you know, people should have been able to buy into Medicare, the public option, or get a private health insurance company. And if Joe Lieberman hadn't stood alone against that, the public option would be part of Obamacare. Anyway, let's move along. Ferguson police antagonized protesters last summer in St. Louis and thus bear much of the responsibility for the ensuing and predictable violence. Not according to me, according to the Justice Department, in a document obtained by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Contributing factors included vague and arbitrary orders and a highly elevated tactical response. Their words, Justice Department words, that involved the use of dogs to intimidate protesters, the use of tear gas on protesters who could not flee, and the positioning of very visible snipers on rooftops. The report also claims that the 4 law enforcement agencies that responded to the protests used tactics that were inconsistent and ineffective in de-escalating the crowds. In fact, if anything, they concluded they did the opposite. So isn't this a sign that it's time to demilitarize our police and train them to be members of the community that they serve? Whatever happened to Sheriff Andy Taylor? You know, his son came to him and said, you know, Paul, why don't you wear a gun? And he said, because I don't want people to fear me, I want them to respect me.
Yeah.
Tom, do you think police should carry guns?
I think many police should not carry guns. Yes.
Do you remember what happened in Paris with Charlie Hebdo, where the police arrived with nothing more than a baguette in their mouth? Couldn't do anything about the
They couldn't have done anything if they'd
on?
shown up with guns either.
That's not true.
The crime was done.
We saw the footage.
The crime was done.
Well, listen, I'm from the south side of Chicago. There's guns. Folks have had guns illegally for a long time. So police should have guns. I would never say that they shouldn't. But what's really peculiar about this particular situation, Ferguson, it was a hot mess. Everyone knows that. But what we really need to do is focus on police reform. And you know,
well, that's what I'm talking about. You know,
I completely agree with you.
I'm saying, like,
now,
in half the European countries, a cop cannot carry a gun until he's been a cop for a couple of years.
So this is what it is. The Guardian, they created a database, and it showed that from the beginning of the year up into June, there were 545 people killed by the police.
551, actually.
Well, it was 545 from what I read. Maybe you got a new number. I don't know. But according to that database, it was 545 people. Most of those folks were Caucasian, and black and Hispanic folks were killed at higher rates.
You're doing this for me. I was going to read this.
Oh, okay, okay.
We got the stats here.
So they were killed at higher rates.
Yeah.
Now, what that tells you is...
About 3 times higher,
what that tells you is this is absolutely a human rights issue.
Yes.
Given the fact that a killing of an unarmed civilian can happen to anyone, that's anybody on this panel for doing absolutely nothing.
But it's 3 times more likely to happen to you.
True enough,
any of us.
and I won't deny that. But what we need, and I've been working with Attorney Ben Crump, as you know, who's represented Trayvon Martin's family, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, Tamir Rice, and many others. He's the incoming president of the National Bar Association. They represent all the black lawyers across the country. And we have developed a group of folks, bipartisan group of folks, associations, people who care about police reform. And we're going to push that thing through Congress. Now, what we need is folks like you to keep telling the message like, hey, we need to change this thing and make it that folks know that this is just a human rights issue. Yeah. Police can be protected from this kind of stuff as well.
Instead of occupy and oppress, basically, our police departments should be serve and protect, and that's not what they're doing. And
there's a number of members of the police force that are serving and protecting.
There's great cops, but here's the problem.
There's that one person that'll do something like in McKinney, Texas, where he's putting his neck on a little girl's head and she's in a bikini, like just outrageous things like that.
But see, the bigger problem, Giano, is that not one cop on that force would have turned that guy in if there wasn't video. So you can say,
Tom.
no. We know this all over the country.
There's a chance that's the case.
Because they know that of the retribution that they're going to get, and that's why I think we need to do like the Northern European countries do. Say, you want to be a police officer? Okay, you got to go to college. You got to learn the law. You got to demonstrate that you got some kind of intellect. You've got to, when you come in as a police officer, you basically go through an apprenticeship that lasts a year or 2, and then you get your gun. And we have very specific rules for behavior. And if you pull your service revolver, you don't just have to write it down on a piece of paper. You know, there is an independent review commission that it has nothing to do with the police department or the court system, but has judicial power that can oversee that. That seems like a reasonable starting point, does it not? And we pay our cops well enough that we get good people.
I don't know exactly that formula you're referring to. I'm talking about shooting of unarmed civilians, whether they be black, white, or indifferent.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, that's not going to happen until we change the nature of the people in the police
departments. And it has to be done in a bipartisan fashion, because this is not a Democrat issue, it's not a Republican issue, it's a human rights issue.
I agree. Okay. I salute you.
We
all agree?
Amen to all that. Yeah.
Move on to the next topic.
I just want to say, Tom, that I think that the men in uniform here in America do a fantastic job.
Yeah?
Without a doubt.
How many times have you come up against them?
Without a doubt.
Where's your flag pin?
How many times have you been arrested?
I haven't been arrested because I don't do anything wrong, Tom.
Yeah.
I don't do anything wrong, and I don't expect
You've never done
to be
anything wrong?
arrested. But
You don't jaywalk?
no,
You serious? You've never
I
jaywalked?
cross at the lights.
Michael Brown got killed for jaywalking. You don't jaywalk?
No. Look, Tom, the point I want to make is that I sense that there's a little bit of anti-police sentiment emanating from you tonight, and I don't think that that's right.
I am
I don't think that it's
totally in
warranted.
favor. I lived for a year in Germany, and I've spent a lot of time in Australia. And I actually interacted with the police several times in Germany because I did things I wasn't supposed to do because I didn't know what the rules were. Like my car tire didn't have enough tread. They travel around with a tape measure in their pocket and they measure the tread on your tires. I parked my car and didn't lock it. Turns out that's a crime, at least in Kulmbach, Germany, and I had to go to the police station to get my registration back, and I got this big lecture about, you were tempting a good German, and I'm like, but they were so professional. They were so courteous, and it wasn't that I was a foreigner, and it wasn't that I was white. It was just that's the level of professionalism that Europeans expect of their police.
But I don't understand.
You will not find that here.
So you're accusing the United States Police of being discourteous?
I went through the Georgia Police Academy back in 1996. Right. I was one of the first civilians who was allowed to go through the Georgia Police Academy. And I can tell you about a third of the people that in that class that I was peripherally part of. I was there for a security training detail for the Olympics. But I got a certificate and private detective badge and the whole bit. About a third of those people were really good people who wanted to serve their community, and most of them were going to end up small-town cops. About a third of those people were people who just wanted a decent job, and about a third of them were people who, even if the pay was only $5,000 a year, if they could take a stick and beat the crap out of people whenever they wanted, they would pay you to do it.
And yet, if you were in trouble in Georgia today, you'd be calling those people to come and look after you.
Very reluctantly. Very reluctantly, and it's not, and it wasn't, yeah, I guess it was pretty much just all Georgia, the Georgia Police Academy, yeah. Yeah, I think that the problem is, we're paying we're starting out cops at really low pay and saying, go out and get shot at. And by the way, you're not going to get support. You're not going to get money. I am pro-police. I'm just not pro having a crappy police force, a McDonald's version of a police force. I want a five-star white tablecloth version of a police department.
What exacerbates that situation is that the worst cops are the ones who get sent to the worst areas.
Yes.
So that's why you see a lot of situations that could be bad, but maybe could be de-escalated by a better cop who may have more training, who may whatever. That's not happening.
Thus Ferguson. Yep. Nick, Christy, Giano, it's great to see you all. Thanks so much.
Happy 4th of July.
Hey, yeah, happy 4th of July. There you go.